Hello everyone, this is James Shore with another test-driven development video. Today is September 19th, it's Monday, and I'm continuing with a new batch of episodes. What I'm going to work on in this episode, I think, is just some cleanup. We've got so in the last episode I talked about DSLs, and I haven't had a chance to see your comments yet because I'm recording this all on the same day, but I'm looking forward to seeing your comments. Previously to that, we had just finished getting a menu in on our application. Let's get that spin up. So now we can create new windows. Oops. And we can close those windows, which is pretty cool. I'm happy about that. There is a flaw, however, which is that if we close the window like this, the application quits. That's not what we want. So I think that's what I'm going to do next. And then there's some other things that need to be dealt with. So let's go ahead and take a look at the close button first. Let's see, we'll close, just start fresh here. Now, I believe the place that is being handled is an application frame, so let's go ahead and pull that up. Yeah, right here, set default close operation, exit on close. That's what's doing it, and we're testing that. That's what we wanted. Yeah, so it should exit application when window closed. That's easy to fix. We just changed this from being exit on close to dispose on close. And then, of course, that will fail. Because I've got the wrong constant, and now it will pass. Now, among the many comments Esco left was one of the points he made was that these tests are really bad tests. They're really nothing more than repeating. I'm just saying the same thing twice. I'm saying I want to use window constants.dispose on close, and then here I'm using window constants.dispose on close. It's not really helping me when I make a mistake, and this is something that I'm aware of, but is one of the challenges that you face when you're doing test-driven development in UIs and other difficult-to-test systems. When we get into the persistence, you're going to see that our approach will be much different. We won't be just asserting the code. I agree that I would love to be using a different way of doing this, and Esco actually did submit some code for testing, for example, the icon in a better way. That said, it's okay when you're doing TDD. One of the challenges you're going to face is some things are just going to be really hard to figure out how to test. And so here's the trick. In a program that's going to be long-lived, that has a conscientious team working on it, that is to say that there are several people on your team who really care about refactoring and making the code better. If you're actually making the code better every week, and the parts of the system that you work in the most, you tend to put the most effort into improving. If you have that, and lots of teams don't, but if you have that, then it's okay to be wrong. It's okay to have something that works, but it's not good enough. Because what will happen is that as you revisit that code, you'll make it better and better. So what I'm doing here with the tests, I know it's not very good, but it's the best I know how to do right now. And if it causes pain in the future, which it probably will, then I'll have more energy to fix that then. There's a certain amount of energy involved just figuring out how to do any test when you start out. So when you're just starting getting something under test, just do whatever it takes to get something simple in place. And once it's tested, then you'll come back to it later and have more mental energy to improve it later. So when programs are long-lived, and you've got a dedicated, conscientious team working on it, then, you know, you're going to make mistakes. It's better to make forward progress than to try to get things as good as they can be. Just make them good enough, is what I'm trying to say. So my point here is that, yeah, this is not a great way of testing it. I don't know of a better way, and rather than stall myself by every time trying to come up with a really rigorous way of testing it, I'm just trying to get anything in there, and then I'll come back to it. Good enough is the name of the game for me. I need the program to work, I need to make forward progress, and I need the code to be better today than it was yesterday, but I don't need it to be perfect. So anyway, that's my excuse. Maybe it is just an excuse. I do know that if I was working with a pair partner, I'd probably be, I'd have more energy to do more rigorous approaches, just as we saw when we did the alternating colors. When I was working with Roy Osherov, we were more dedicated about testing this than I would have been if I'd been working alone. So it's all about having enough energy to make forward progress, though, and get some tests in. Some tests are better than no tests, and poor tests can often be the difference between, being willing to accept less than perfect tests can be the difference between writing tests and just throwing up your hands and giving up. So do something rather than no testing at all. All right, so my poor test says that I'm going to dispose on clothes, and I'm doing that. You'll notice that these poor tests do mean that I have to do a lot more manual testing, but once I've done that initial manual test and I've verified my assumptions, I don't feel like I have to come back and do more manual testing. So that's that. Now, so clicking the close button no longer quits the app. However, I do believe that closing the last window closes the app. I've got a note on that. So we'll close that one, and that one, and that one, and that one, and that one. Yeah. Okay, so next we've got something about improving the stock market table model tests, episode 31. What it looks like is happening here is Peter and Mikhail and I are having a conversation about why was it, how well are these tests designed? And I think the start of that conversation was result of when in episode 131, things taking a little longer or multiple tests failing or it being a little clumsy. I don't remember the details there. And looking at this, I think these tests could certainly be better. And I had the idea here was rather than, if I look at these tests now, they're certainly not great. I think they could be improved. To start with, let's see. I said that one row is a good way of sneaking up on the problem, but it doesn't speak to anything important about stock market table model. Well, that's somewhat true. It's trying to make sure that the correct values come out of the various columns. And the way I said that fix it is rename it to columns. Yeah. So number and order of columns. So let's call this column values. And I was going to move. So this says that there should be 7 columns. Yeah, columns. Should be 7 columns, and here's what they should be. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That passes. And then I said that this should be called column names. Yeah, I think this is an improvement. Now I'm looking at what are the columns and do they return the right values? And then what are the names and what are the classes associated with those names? And that will force all these things, column titles, column classes, and then actual value at, it will force all those to sort of be correct. So let's call this column values. And I was saying that, yeah, number of column names should match the call this column titles. Oh no, that is column name. We can say number of column names should be the same as get column count, and is actually that's going to force those to be the same. I could have sworn there. Forgot to save it. Okay, that's good. And then yeah. And then rather than asserting on each of these, I'll just say that it should map column titles to and I think rather than saying cost basis, what I'll do is I'll say column titles 1 is the same as model column name 2. That's a little bit confusing, but actually no, I think they're both zero-based, so that should work. Yeah. And number of column names should match number of columns, of course. Then I think we'll do the same thing here. Number of column classes should match number of columns. And that worked. And then what we're doing here is, doing some checks on each column. So I think that's an improvement. Now, Mikhail, or I apologize again if I'm not pronouncing your name right, he had a more sophisticated solution, but it's also more complex, which involved a column class. And my tendency is to keep my classes really, really simple. And this goes back to what I was talking about in the beginning of the episode. I want things to be good enough. And in particular, I really shy away from complexity. So I will take a less than perfect solution if it means that my code is overall smaller and simpler. I think that in design you're dealing with a whole lot of trade-offs. There's no one right answer. There's an answer that's going to minimize complexity. There's an answer that's going to minimize number of test failures when you make a change. There's an answer that's going to maximize readability, as the DSLs do, and as we discussed in our last episode, but they, I think, made the code harder to understand and harder to debug. There's all these different factors in design, and our design decisions have more to do with which of those factors we value than they do with any objective understanding of what's right. And that's how it's possible for us, all of us, watching this. If there's 1,000 people watching these videos, there's 1,000 different views on what the right way to design is, and 999 people saying, Jim, you're doing it the wrong way. And I can accept that. That's why whenever you look at somebody else's code, or your own code from 3 years ago, your first reaction is always going to be, this is crap. Because there's lots of different ways to do it. So for me, my number one value is minimizing the cost of maintenance. I care about that more than anything else, because maintenance costs are, in my opinion, my understanding, and this is backed up by research, maintenance costs are the highest source of cost in software development. So I work really hard at minimizing maintenance costs, so I don't worry about minimizing typing, I don't really worry about minimizing creation costs, I worry about how hard is it going to be to understand and how hard is it going to be to change. So I'll do something like this that's not sophisticated, but it's really easy to understand and doesn't, if I want to make changes to the way this works, there's not a lot of stuff here to change. So anyway, I guess that's the message for today's episode is there's a famous saying, I forget who said it, perfect is the enemy of good. Good enough is what I'm looking for. Just good enough so that I'm confident that the software is high quality and so that it's easy to change. And I know it's not as easy to change as it could be. I'm just doing the best I can now with an understanding that it's my responsibility and the people I work with, it's their responsibility. Together we have the responsibility to make it even better every week. So it's as good as I know how to make it today, but I'm not going to beat myself up over making it better. And when I see an opportunity to make it better, I will take that opportunity with the understanding that my choices are guided by maintenance costs and other people's choices are guided by different things. And what's important is that in our team, we have a shared understanding of what's important. That's coding standards. That's a whole nother topic. Anyway, that's it for this time. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time.